Ambassador Commander Cyrix stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars through the massive viewing window. He had served the Velthari hegemony for over 200 years. He had met dozens of alien species. He had welcomed young civilizations into the great family of spacefaring peoples. This mission would be no different, or so he thought. The sensors had detected something strange at the edge of Velthari territory. Small ships, slow ships, the kind of ships that species built when they first learned to travel between stars. Cyrix had seen this pattern many times before. A young species would stumble into space, full of hope and wonder, and the Velthari would greet them. They would offer guidance. They would offer protection. In return, the young species would join the hegemony as a client race, grateful for the help. Cyrix expected the same thing today. His fleet of 12 patrol ships jumped through folded space and arrived at the coordinates. The sensors showed nothing at first, just empty void and distant stars. Cyrix frowned. The readings had been clear. There should be primitive vessels here. "Scan again," he ordered his crew. The sensor officer worked the controls. His forearms moved quickly across the panels. "Nothing, Ambassador Commander. The space appears empty." Cyrix felt uneasy. Something was wrong. In all his years, he had never seen sensor ghosts this clear. The readings had shown ships, real ships. Where had they gone? Then space itself seemed to tear open. A ship appeared from nothing. One moment there was empty void, and the next moment a vessel hung before the Velthari flagship. It was small, maybe a tenth the size of Cyrix's ship. Its hull was dark gray and covered in strange angles. It had no visible weapons, no obvious engines. It simply floated there, silent and still. Cyrix stared at the ship. His two hearts beat faster. The Velthari had cloaking technology, but it was expensive and rare. Only their most advanced warships carried it. Yet this small vessel had appeared from nowhere, right in front of a military fleet, as if it had been waiting for them. A communication signal came through. Cyrix nodded to his officer, and the view screen flickered to life. A creature appeared on the screen. It had soft skin with no scales, two eyes small and forward-facing like a predator, a mouth that curved upward at the edges. Cyrix had studied many species, but he had never seen one quite like this. "Greetings, Ambassador Commander Cyrix of the Velthari hegemony," the creature said. It spoke perfect Velthari, with no accent, no hesitation. "I am Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Sentinel. On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to this meeting." Cyrix felt his blood run cold. How did this creature know his name? How did it speak his language? The Velthari had never encountered this species before. There was no record of them in any database. Yet this human spoke as if they had studied the Velthari for years. "How do you know our language?" Cyrix asked. He tried to keep his voice calm, but he could hear the slight tremor in his own words. The human's mouth curved higher. Cyrix would later learn that this expression was called a smile. "We have been listening for a very long time, Ambassador Commander. We heard your ships coming 3 days ago. We thought it polite to wait for you to arrive before introducing ourselves." 3 days. The Velthari fleet had traveled through folded space. Their arrival should have been instant and undetectable. Yet these humans had known they were coming. They had waited. "Your ship is impressive," Cyrix said carefully. "Cloaking technology is rare among young species." "Young?" The human tilted her head. "I suppose that depends on how you measure age. We have only been traveling between stars for about 300 years, but we have been preparing for this moment much longer." Cyrix did not understand. Preparing for what moment? Meeting the Velthari? Why would any species spend centuries preparing for a simple first contact? "I would like to meet with your leaders," Cyrix said, "to discuss trade and cooperation. The Velthari hegemony welcomes all peaceful species." "That is very kind," Commander Vasquez replied, "but I think you should meet the Armada first. Admiral Chen Wei is eager to make your acquaintance." "Armada?" Cyrix repeated the word. "What Armada?" The human's smile did not waver. "Perhaps it is best if I show you." She transmitted a set of coordinates to the Velthari ships. Cyrix studied them. The location was deep in unclaimed space, far from any star system. There was nothing there according to Velthari maps. Just empty void. "What will we find there?" Syrinx asked. "The rest of us," Commander Vasquez said simply. Syrinx looked at his officers. They seemed as confused as he felt. A patrol fleet finding a single cloaked ship was unusual enough. What else could possibly be waiting? "Very well," and Syrinx said, "we will go to these coordinates. But I warn you, human, if this is a trap, you will face the full power of the Velthari hegemony." Commander Vasquez laughed. It was a strange sound, warm and genuine. "Ambassador Commander, if we wanted to harm you, we would not have introduced ourselves first. Please follow the Sentinel. The Admiral is waiting." The small human ship turned and moved toward the coordinates. Syrinx ordered his fleet to follow. They traveled for several hours through normal space. The human ship stayed ahead of them, never going too fast, never leaving them behind. It was leading them somewhere, and Syrinx could not shake the feeling that everything was about to change. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, Syrinx understood why. The view screen filled with ships, hundreds of ships. Thousands of ships. They stretched across the void in every direction, a metal forest floating in the darkness between stars. There were massive carriers bigger than anything the Velthari had ever built. There were sleek cruisers covered in weapons. There were small fighters moving in perfect formations. But it was not just the numbers that shocked Syrinx, it was the variety. Every ship was different. Different shapes, different sizes, different designs. Some were smooth and elegant. Others were rough and brutal. Some seemed to glow with energy. Others were dark and silent. It looked like 100 different species had built these vessels, but the signals all carried the same identification: human. Syrinx gripped the railing of his command platform. His legs felt weak. His two hearts pounded in his chest. "What is this?" he whispered. Commander Vasquez's voice came through the communication channel, calm and proud. "This Ambassador Commander is the human Armada. All of humanity, united under one flag. We have been waiting a very long time to meet someone out here among the stars." She paused, and her next words sent ice through Syrinx's veins. "And we have questions that need answers." Syrinx had seen many fleets in his long career. He had witnessed the combined might of the Velthari hegemony during the Great Display, when 10,000 warships gathered to celebrate the Emperor's coronation. He had thought that was the most impressive sight in the galaxy. He was wrong. The human Armada was something else entirely. It was not just big, it was impossible. The Velthari had been spacefaring for 12,000 years. They had conquered dozens of systems. They had absorbed hundreds of client races. Yet their entire military could not match what floated before Syrinx's eyes. His sensor officer spoke in a shaking voice. "Ambassador Commander, I am reading over 8,000 capital ships, 40,000 support vessels, fighter craft beyond counting. And there is something else." "What?" Syrinx asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. "The flagship at the center of the formation. It is... I do not have words. It is the size of a small moon. Our sensors cannot penetrate its hull. It seems to have its own gravity field." Syrinx looked at the view screen. At the heart of the Armada sat a vessel that defied reason. It was massive beyond imagination, a mountain of metal and light floating in the void. Golden lines ran across its dark hull like veins of fire. Ships the size of Velthari cruisers moved around it like insects around a great beast. A signal came through from Commander Vasquez. "Ambassador Commander, Admiral Chen Wei invites you aboard the Unconquered Sun for diplomatic discussions. A shuttle will be sent to collect you." Syrinx wanted to refuse. Every instinct told him to flee, to return to Velthari space and warn his people. But he was a diplomat. Running from a first contact would shame his entire civilization. Besides, he realized with cold certainty, if these humans wanted the Velthari destroyed, there was nothing his patrol fleet could do to stop them. "I accept," he said. The shuttle that came for him was elegant and fast. It carried Syrinx across the void toward the massive flagship. As he approached, he saw details that his sensors had missed. The hull was covered in symbols and images, flags from many nations, words in dozens of scripts, pictures of humans from different lands and times. The ship was not just a weapon, it was a monument to something, a testament to unity. The shuttle landed in a hangar bay larger than most space stations. Human soldiers stood at attention as Syrinx walked down the ramp. They wore different uniforms, different colors, different styles. Yet they moved as one, saluting in perfect unison. A human woman waited for him. She was older than Commander Vasquez, with gray in her dark hair and lines on her face. She wore a white uniform covered in medals and symbols of rank. Ambassador Commander Syrinx, she said, bowing slightly. I am Admiral Chen Wei, commander of the human armada. Welcome aboard the unconquered sun. Syrinx returned the bow. Admiral Chen, I must be honest with you. I do not understand what I am seeing. My people have traveled the stars for 12,000 years. We have never encountered a species like yours. Admiral Chen smiled that strange human smile. Please walk with me. I will try to explain. They walked through corridors filled with activity. Humans rushed past on important missions. Machines hummed and clicked. Voices echoed from every direction in languages Syrinx did not recognize. But there was something strange about the crew. They did not all look the same. Some humans had pale skin like snow. Others had skin dark as night. Some were tall and thin. Others were short and broad. Their eyes came in many colors. Their hair grew in many textures. They looked like different subspecies, maybe even different species entirely. Yet they worked together without conflict. You are confused by our diversity, Admiral Chen observed. Yes, Syrinx admitted. Among the Velthari, we have one form, one culture, one way. Your people seem fragmented. Admiral Chen laughed softly. That is what we thought too long ago. Humanity spent most of its history fighting itself. Nation against nation, religion against religion. We killed each other over differences so small that looking back, we cannot understand why they mattered. She stopped at a window that looked out at the Armada. Ships of every design moved in the darkness. But then we learned we were not alone in the universe, and everything changed. How so? Syrinx asked. We realized that our differences were not weaknesses. They were strengths. Every human culture developed different technologies, different ideas, different ways of solving problems. When we finally united, we did not erase those differences. We combined them. She pointed at the fleet outside. That carrier was designed by engineers from North America. That cruiser uses propulsion systems invented in Japan. Those fighters follow combat tactics developed in Russia. The shields protecting this ship came from research done in India. Every piece of our armada carries the genius of all humanity. Syrinx felt dizzy. The Velthari way was conformity. One method, one system, one path to success. The idea that chaos and diversity could create something greater seemed impossible. Yet the proof floated all around him. Why? He asked finally. Why build all of this? Your species is young. You could have lived peacefully, explored slowly. Why create the largest military force I have ever seen? Admiral Chen's smile faded. Her eyes grew hard and cold. Because we learned a terrible lesson, Ambassador Commander. We learned that the universe is not kind. We learned that there are things in the darkness that take without asking. And we swore that we would never be victims again. What things? What happened to your people? Admiral Chen turned to face him fully. She was shorter than Syrinx, smaller and softer. But in that moment, she seemed more dangerous than any warrior he had ever met. 250 years ago, humanity established its first colony outside our home system. 3,000 people traveled to a distant world to build a new life. Families, children, dreamers. They worked for 12 years to create a paradise. She paused. Her hands tightened into fists. Then one day, all contact stopped. When we sent ships to investigate, we found the colony intact. Buildings standing, crops growing, food sitting on tables. But every single human was gone. Not dead. Gone. Taken. All that remained was a strange symbol burned into the ground. A symbol we had never seen before. Syrinx felt horror creeping through his heart. He knew that symbol. Every Velthari knew it. Show me, he whispered. Admiral Chen pulled a small device from her pocket. A hologram appeared between them. A spiraling glyph that seemed to twist and writhe even as Syrinx watched. His blood turned to ice. You recognize it, Admiral Chen said. It was not a question. That is the mark of the Hollow Ones, Syrinx replied, his voice barely audible. They were a species that disappeared 8,000 years ago. Ancient records say they were collectors. They harvested intelligent beings from across the galaxy for purposes no one understood. We thought they were extinct. Clearly not, Admiral Chen said grimly. They took our people, 3,000 humans, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters. We do not know why. We do not know where. But we have spent 2.5 centuries building the power to find out. She gestured at the Armada outside the window. This is not a fleet of conquest, Ambassador Commander. This is a search party, the largest and most powerful search party ever assembled. We are looking for our people, and we will not stop until we find them. Syrinx stared at the human admiral. He saw no madness in her eyes, no anger. Only determination so absolute that it frightened him more than any weapon. What will you do if you find whoever took them? He asked. Admiral Chen's smile returned, but there was no warmth in it now. We will ask politely for our people back. Once. She did not need to explain what would happen after that. Admiral Chen led Syrinx to a chamber deep within the unconquered sun. It was not a war room or a command center. It was a memorial. The walls were covered with photographs. Thousands of faces stared out at Syrinx. Humans of every type, old and young, male and female. Some smiled at the camera, others looked serious. A few held children in their arms or stood beside loved ones. Every photograph had a name beneath it. These are the colonists of Kepler 442b, Admiral Chen said softly. 3,047 people. We know every name, every face, every story. Syrinx walked slowly through the chamber. He looked at the faces. A young woman with red hair holding a baby. An old man with kind eyes and weathered hands. 2 children playing in a field of alien flowers. These were not soldiers or warriors. They were ordinary people who had simply wanted a new home among the stars. Tell me what happened, Syrinx said. Tell me everything. Admiral Chen sat down on a bench in the center of the room. Suddenly she looked tired. Old. The weight of centuries pressed down on her shoulders. In the year 2089, humanity sent its first colony ship beyond our solar system. It took 20 years to build and another 30 to reach its destination. Kepler 442b was a paradise. Blue oceans, green forests, air that humans could breathe without masks. It was everything we had dreamed of finding. She touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared in the air. Syrinx saw a beautiful world spinning slowly, continents covered in vegetation, clouds drifting across azure seas. The colonists worked hard. They built homes and farms. They established schools and hospitals. They started families. For 12 years, they sent back regular reports. They were happy. They were thriving. They spoke of Kepler 442b as a second Earth. The hologram changed. Now it showed a small settlement nestled in a valley. Simple buildings surrounded by fields of crops. Children running through streets. People working and laughing together. Then on June 15th, 2101, the scheduled communication window opened. No signal came. Earth waited. Hours passed. Days, weeks. Nothing. Our colony had gone silent. Admiral Chen's voice grew heavy. It took 18 months for the rescue fleet to arrive. What they found was impossible to understand. The colony was intact. Every building stood exactly as it should. Power generators hummed, water systems ran, crops grew tall and healthy, food sat on kitchen tables, half-eaten. Beds were unmade. Personal items lay scattered about as if their owners had simply stepped outside for a moment. But the people were gone, Syrinx said. Gone without a trace. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle or disaster. 3,000 humans had simply vanished as if they had never existed. The only clue was the symbol burned into the stone of the central plaza, a mark so deep that it had melted the rock itself. The spiraling glyph appeared in the hologram. Syrinx looked away. Even as an image, it made his eyes hurt. Our scientists studied the symbol for years. They found nothing in human records that matched it. They sent probes to dozens of nearby systems looking for answers. They found only empty worlds and silent stars. Whoever had taken our people was long gone. So you built all of this, Syrinx said, gesturing around him. An entire armada, because of one lost colony. Admiral Chen stood up sharply. Her eyes burned with sudden fire. One lost colony? 3,000 human beings were stolen from their homes. Mothers were taken from their children. Children were taken from their parents. They trusted us to protect them. They traveled across the void because we told them it was safe, and we failed them. She walked to the wall of photographs and touched one gently. A young man with a bright smile. This was my ancestor, David Chen. He was a teacher on Kepler 442b. He taught children how to read and write. His last message home spoke of how much he loved watching his students grow. He was 28 years old when he disappeared. Syrinx began to understand. This was not just about finding lost colonists. This was personal. For 250 years, humanity had carried this wound. Every generation had inherited the grief and the guilt. Every child had grown up knowing that somewhere among the stars, their people waited to be rescued. We did not build this armada for revenge, Admiral Chen continued. We built it for hope. We refused to believe that our people were simply gone. Somewhere out there, they still exist. We will find them. We will bring them home, no matter how long it takes. No matter what stands in our way. Before Syrinx could respond, alarms began to wail throughout the ship. A young officer burst into the memorial chamber. Admiral, we are receiving a distress signal. A Velthari colony world is under attack. Admiral Chen was moving before the officer finished speaking. Syrinx ran to keep up with her as she strode toward the command bridge. What colony? Syrinx demanded. Who is attacking? Thesson Prime, the officer replied. An agricultural world. Population of 2 million. The attackers are... He hesitated, fear plain on his face. Their ships match nothing in our records, but the energy signature is consistent with the residue found on Kepler 442b. Syrinx stopped walking. His blood froze in his veins. That is not possible. The Hollow Ones have been extinct for 8,000 years. Apparently someone forgot to tell them, Admiral Chen said grimly. They reached the bridge. The massive command center buzzed with activity. Hundreds of officers worked at stations, coordinating the vast armada. On the main view screen, Syrinx saw the distress signal displayed, and behind it, the spiraling glyph of the Hollow Ones. They are back, Syrinx whispered. After all this time, they are back. Admiral Chen took her command chair. Her face was calm, but Syrinx could see the fire burning in her eyes. 250 years of waiting. 250 years of preparing. The moment humanity had been building toward had finally arrived. All ships, battle stations, Admiral Chen announced. Her voice carried across the entire armada through the communication network. We have confirmed hostile contact. The enemy that took our people has returned. They are currently attacking a Velthari colony world. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are going to stop them. We are going to save those colonists. And then we are going to get some answers. All ships, prepare for combat jump. We leave in 10 minutes. Syrinx stood on the bridge of the human flagship, surrounded by aliens who were now his only hope. His patrol fleet was nothing compared to the enemy that awaited them. But these humans, these impossible creatures who had spent centuries preparing for this moment, seemed almost eager for the battle. Are you not afraid? Syrinx asked Admiral Chen. She turned to look at him. Her smile was fierce and proud. Ambassador Commander, we are humans. We have been afraid since we first crawled out of the mud and looked up at the stars. Fear does not stop us. It drives us forward. Now strap in. We have a colony to save. The armada began to move. Thousands of ships aligned for the jump to Thesson Prime. And Syrinx realized that the galaxy would never be the same again. The human armada erupted from folded space like a storm of metal and fire. Thousands of ships appeared around Thesson Prime in perfect formation, their weapons already powered and ready. Syrinx had never seen anything move so fast. From the first alarm to full battle deployment had taken less than 30 minutes. But what awaited them was a nightmare beyond imagination. Enemy ships orbited the planet below. They were wrong. That was the only word Syrinx could find to describe them. Their hulls twisted and folded in ways that made his eyes water. Angles that should not exist connected surfaces that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Looking at them for too long caused pain, as if the brain refused to accept what the eyes were seeing. Beams of pale light lanced down from the enemy vessels to the planet's surface. Syrinx watched in horror as millions of Velthari civilians rose into the air, pulled upward by those terrible rays. Columns of living beings lifted toward the waiting ships. His people were being harvested like crops from a field. "All ships, engage!" Admiral Chen commanded. Her voice was steady and calm. "Carrier groups Alpha through Delta, launch fighters. Battleship divisions, advance to optimal firing range. Destroyers, screen the carriers. Let nothing through." The Armada moved as one. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Human ships spread across space in patterns that seemed random, but clearly were not. They flowed around each other like water, never colliding, never slowing. The enemy noticed the new arrivals. Several of the twisted vessels turned away from the planet and moved to intercept. Energy weapons Syrinx had never seen before lashed out at the human fleet. Ships exploded. Hulls cracked open to the void. Hundreds of humans died in the first seconds of battle. But the Armada did not stop. It did not slow. It did not retreat. "Forward batteries, fire!" Admiral Chen ordered. The unconquered sun spoke with a voice of thunder. Weapons that Syrinx could not identify sent beams of golden light toward the enemy. Where they struck, alien hulls cracked and burned. One of the twisted ships broke apart, its strange geometry finally collapsing into normal space. "Direct hit," an officer reported. "Enemy vessel destroyed. Continue firing. All ships concentrate on the harvesters over population centers. We need to stop the abductions." Syrinx watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. Human ships engaged the enemy with tactics he had never seen before. Fighters swarmed in waves, drawing fire away from the larger vessels. Destroyers made suicide runs against enemy weapons, sacrificing themselves to create openings. Cruisers moved in impossible patterns, their crews accepting brutal acceleration that would kill any Velthari. "How are they doing this?" Syrinx asked in wonder. "Their ships should be tearing themselves apart." A human officer nearby heard his question. "We train for this, Ambassador. Every pilot in the fleet has spent years learning to push their bodies beyond normal limits. We do not accept the impossible. We simply refuse to recognize it." An enemy beam struck the unconquered sun. The massive ship shuddered. Alarms blared. Damage reports flooded the bridge. "Hull breach on decks 17 through 22, someone called out. "Atmosphere venting. Damage control teams responding." Admiral Chen did not flinch. "Maintain course. Continue firing. How many civilians are still on the surface?" "Approximately 800,000 remain. The enemy has already taken over 1 million. 1 million Velthari lives stolen." Syrinx felt sick. His people had no defense against this enemy. They had forgotten the Hollow Ones existed. They had grown comfortable and soft in their ancient power. But the humans remembered. The humans had been preparing for this battle since before Syrinx was born. "Admiral," another officer called out, "one of the enemy ships has been disabled. Its engines are offline." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "Can we board it?" "It will be extremely dangerous. The internal layout is unknown. Our Marines will be fighting blind." "Do it. I want prisoners. I want answers. And I want to check those holds for captives." A human assault carrier moved toward the crippled enemy vessel. Syrinx watched as dozens of boarding craft launched from its bays. Small ships, barely bigger than escape pods, racing toward the twisted alien hull. "Those Marines are volunteering to enter that thing?" Syrinx asked. "They are not volunteering," Admiral Chen replied. "They are fighting to be first in line. Humans do not abandon their people, and right now, there might be captives on that ship who need rescue." The boarding craft reached the enemy vessel and attached to its hull. Breaching charges blew open entry points. Humans in powered armor stormed inside, their weapons blazing. Syrinx could not see what happened next, but he heard the radio chatter, screaming, gunfire, explosions, and then, incredibly, cheering. "Admiral, this is Colonel Martinez aboard the enemy vessel. We have found stasis pods, hundreds of them. They contain living beings from multiple species." Admiral Chen's hands gripped her chair so tightly that her knuckles went white. "Any humans?" A long pause. Syrinx held his breath. "Confirmed. We have found humans in stasis. Their life signs are stable. Admiral, their uniforms, they have the colony markings of Kepler 442b. The bridge fell silent. 250 years of searching, 250 years of hoping, and finally, against all odds, the lost colonists had been found. Admiral Chen's voice broke when she spoke. "Get them out of there, Colonel. Get all of them out. Every pod, every species. No one gets left behind." The battle raged on around them. More enemy ships fell to human weapons. More human ships died under alien fire. But slowly, inexorably, the tide was turning. The Hollow Ones, or whatever they truly were, had never faced an enemy like humanity. They had never encountered a species that refused to surrender, that refused to run, that kept coming no matter the cost. One by one, the enemy vessels began to retreat. They pulled away from Thesson Prime, abandoning their harvest. Their strange engines flickered to life, tearing holes in space that led to wherever they had come from. But not all of them escaped. Human ships pursued relentlessly, destroying any enemy that moved too slowly. By the time the last alien vessel vanished, 2/3 of their fleet had been reduced to burning wreckage. "Enemy forces have withdrawn," an officer announced. "Thesson Prime is secure." The bridge erupted in cheers. Humans embraced each other. Some wept openly. Syrinx watched them celebrate, feeling emotions he could not name. Relief, gratitude, wonder. Admiral Chen stood up slowly. She looked exhausted, but her eyes shone with triumph. "Casualties?" she asked quietly. 47 ships lost. Approximately 12,000 human lives. Another 30,000 wounded. 12,000 dead. The number hit Syrinx like a physical blow. 12,000 humans had died to save a Velthari world, a species they had only met hours ago. "And the colonists?" Admiral Chen asked. 3,012 humans recovered from the enemy vessel, along with approximately 50,000 beings from 17 other species. All alive, all in good condition. 3,000, almost exactly the number taken from Kepler 442b 250 years ago. Admiral Chen lowered her head. When she raised it again, tears ran down her cheeks. "Contact Earth," she said. "Tell them we found them. Tell them we brought them home." As the message was sent, a transmission cut through all frequencies. A voice spoke in every language at once, filling the bridge with its cold, ancient power. "You were not meant to fight. You were meant to be collected. You have made yourselves interesting." Admiral Chen looked up at the view screen, at the stars where the enemy had fled. "Good," she said softly. "Now they know we are here. Now they know what we can do. And the next time we meet, we will not just defend. We will hunt." Syrinx shivered. He had seen what humanity could do when threatened. He did not want to imagine what they would do when they went on the attack. But somewhere deep in his heart, he felt something unexpected. Something that had not existed there before. Hope. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Thesson Prime. The galaxy had changed more in that time than in the previous 1,000 years. News of the human victory spread across every inhabited world. A young species, barely 3 centuries into spacefaring, had defeated an enemy that ancient civilizations had thought extinct. They had done the impossible. They had fought monsters from legend and won. But more important than the victory was what came after. The humans did not demand payment for their help. They did not claim territory or tribute. Instead, they offered something the galaxy had never seen before. They offered friendship. Syrinx stood in the Great Assembly Hall on the Velthari homeworld. Representatives from over 100 species filled the massive chamber. Some had traveled for months to be here. Others had never left their home systems before, but all had come for the same reason. The Galactic Concord, an assembly that had only met 3 times in recorded history, was gathering once again. And for the first time ever, a new species had been invited to join. Admiral Chen Wei entered the chamber wearing a simple white uniform. She carried no weapons. She brought no guards. She walked alone to the speaker's platform and looked out at the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. "Thank you for inviting me to speak," she began. Her voice was calm and clear. "I know many of you have questions about humanity, about who we are, about what we want. I will try to answer as honestly as I can. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Humans come from a small world called Earth. It is nothing special. Average size, average temperature, a single yellow star. But life on Earth was never easy. Our planet tried to kill us constantly. Ice ages froze us. Droughts starved us. Diseases decimated us. Predators hunted us. We survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we refused to die. She smiled slightly. Humans are stubborn. It is perhaps our greatest quality and our worst flaw. When the universe tells us something is impossible, we take it as a personal challenge. When obstacles block our path, we find a way around them. When we fall down, we get back up. Every time, no matter how many times it takes. The assembly listened in silence. Syrinx watched the faces of the other representatives. He saw fear in some, suspicion in others. But many looked at the human admiral with something like wonder. We did not come to the stars to conquer, Admiral Chen continued. We came because we were curious. Because we looked up at the night sky and wondered who else might be looking back. Because we dreamed of meeting others like us, intelligent beings who asked the same questions we asked. Why are we here? What is our purpose? Are we alone? She shook her head. We are not alone. This assembly proves that hundreds of species have reached for the stars and found each other. That is beautiful. That is precious. And it is worth protecting. Her expression grew serious. But we have also learned that the universe contains dangers. The collectors, as we call them, have been harvesting intelligent life for thousands of years. They took our people. They took your people. They see us all as nothing more than specimens to be gathered. And they will return. A murmur ran through the assembly. Fear spread like ripples on water. Humanity has spent 250 years preparing for this threat. We built an armada because we had no choice. We needed the power to protect ourselves and to rescue our lost colonists. But now that we have faced the enemy, we know something important. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. We cannot win alone. No single species can. The collectors have been doing this for millennia. They have technology we do not understand. They have resources we cannot imagine. If we fight them separately, they will pick us off one by one. But if we stand together, if we combine our knowledge and our strength, we have a chance. Admiral Chen stepped away from the podium and spread her hands. Humanity does not ask to lead this alliance. We do not ask for special treatment or authority. We only ask to stand beside you as equals, to share what we know, to learn from what you know, and to face the future together. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Syrinx felt the weight of history pressing down on everyone present. This was the moment that would define the next 1,000 years. Then slowly, Syrinx stood up from his seat. The Velthari delegation rose with him. The Velthari hegemony supports humanity's membership in the Galactic Concord, Syrinx announced. They saved our people. They asked nothing in return. We are proud to call them allies. Another representative stood, the Karathi ambassador, an insectoid being with crystalline wings. The Karathi Federation also supports this proposal. We have seen the human recordings of the battle. Their courage is beyond question. One by one, other species rose. The Morvex, the Talion Collective, the Journeyer clans. Species that had been enemies for centuries now stood united in their support of humanity. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Chen bowed to the assembly. Thank you. Humanity will honor this trust. We will share our technology. We will open our worlds to your people. And we will stand with you against any threat, no matter how ancient or terrible. She paused and her smile grew warm. We are no longer alone in the universe. None of us are. And together there is nothing we cannot overcome. Far from the assembly hall, on a world that had been restored to life, a different kind of celebration was happening. The colonists of Kepler 442b had finally come home. They walked through streets that had been empty for 250 years. They touched buildings their ancestors had built. They breathed air that smelled of memories. For them, only moments had passed in stasis. But for humanity, centuries of grief had finally ended. An old woman named Sarah Chen, descended from the same family as the Admiral, knelt in the central plaza. Where once a terrible symbol had been burned into stone, a new monument now stood. A human hand reaching toward the sky, surrounded by the symbols of every species that had joined the alliance. A young girl approached her, a child born on Earth who had traveled across the void to see this historic moment. "Were you scared?" the girl asked, "when the monsters took you?" Sarah looked at the child with eyes that held ancient sorrow and fresh hope. "I was terrified," she admitted. "I did not know what was happening. I did not know if anyone would come for us. But somewhere deep inside, I always believed that humanity would find a way. That is what we do. We find ways. We never give up." She touched the monument gently. "And I was right. They came for us. After 250 years, they came. That is what humans do, little one. We come for our own. We always come." The girl smiled and took Sarah's hand. Together they looked up at the stars. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an ancient enemy watched and calculated. They had taken countless species over countless millennia. None had ever fought back. None had ever succeeded in rescuing their captured peoples. Until now. For the first time in their eternal existence, the collectors felt something unfamiliar. Something that had no place in their cold, logical minds. Fear. The humans were coming, and they would never stop. Above Kepler 442b, ships from 100 worlds patrolled the skies. Human vessels flew alongside Velthari cruisers and Karathi scouts. Different designs, different technologies,